For me, nourishment is the display of a form of care. Growing up, nourishment to me was always, an act of providing and showing love and care through food and through health and through tradition as well. So funny enough, my grandmother was a chef at the daycare that I used to go to when I was a kid. So I every day, like before lunch, like I just go over to the kitchen and she'd let me in. She was amazing at like everything she made, but like particularly like I'd love her desserts, and she'd always make these like profiteroles, which I don't think is too tough of a recipe. So she'd just like let me play a little bit with, I don't know, like a bit of sugar or vanilla or whatever she needed, and I'm sure I didn't contribute much help, but it was just so much fun to like always watch her cook and her love for cooking, and it was a privilege to like always eat her food as well. To me, making and sharing food is a token of my appreciation. I share space with my family, so for me it's to show that I care for my family, and although I'm not a very good cook, it's an expression of love to me. Gathering for me has a lot of different definitions. I think we have the very traditional sense where, for example, my family will always gather on New Year's Day, and we always ring in the new year, and we have to have like this like rice cake soup that we have a tradition for, but it can also be something new. Like for my immediate group of friends, we started this new tradition the past year of meeting on solstices. So we like just prepare like a potluck, and it's like a great way to spend quality time. So I think it's the effort to make time for the ones that you love in your life. I am nourished when I prioritize my health, and to nourish community, I think, is to share and to show love. Food is inherently explorative, like from the way we gather ingredients or recipes, or try like a new Mexican restaurant. There are so many opportunities, I think, to explore and connect. And it's also the one thing I think we all need in a day. We need to consume food, so I think there's no better opportunity to like connect and make space for that.
My dad was an engineer and my mother was the farmer, so we had sheep and ducks and chickens, and then sort of, I guess, a field that was our where we planted vegetables and food, and then we were surrounded by apple orchards and other farms. It really makes me think about the care of my mother's hands preparing everything, and all of the labor that went into it, and that being really a way to express love and care. So I really think that there's not a specific food, but there's really just the goodness of ingredients, and coming together around a table, having lovely hot meals on a cold day, that kind of thing. Food has become really important in our house because we put a lot of care into it. I've taught my kids how to make some basics and understand that ingredients are really the key there. So my kids go to the farmer's market. They have since they were very young. We used to do a community garden plot. And so my kids would spend hours a day with me farming some vegetables for our household use. And so they really, really, really appreciate food, whether it's at home and grown in Ontario or whether we're traveling. They're always eager and excited to try new things as well. A lot of moments in my life as a parent, especially, in which coming together around food has been really significant as an indicator of how robust the community I'm in is, and whether that's in a workplace and everyone's bringing food that's traditional to their heritage, or whether that's in a small neighborhood where a bunch of people get together and share a Tuesday night meal because that's the easiest way to feed a whole bunch of kids when people are rushing around and doing stuff, or whether it's a community barbecue, something like that. Just so many different people coming together to feed a basic need of just nutrition, but really there is that kind of social need that's also being fulfilled by people coming together over food. Probably the greatest number of hours I've put in as a parent are gathering food, maybe growing food for a little bit, preparing food, storing food, planning for food. And it is so elemental, but at the same time, it's also delivering care and love, teaching other humans how important the food part is to all those other aspects of life, how it's kind of the foundation of relationships, how it's a great way to connect with someone who's a stranger or someone who you know very well. And I think really that it's kind of a building block of making a family and also, therefore, of making a community.
My family runs a restaurant business, so I've been grew up like all around foods, especially Chinese food, because my parents specialize Chinese food from their region in China, so they specialize those local food. And even my father's been running Chinese restaurant like in his like entire career life. And we still have actually one restaurant running right now in Mississauga, like when I was at my university age. So I started to help out doing part-time over the weekend. So I serve as a waiter, anything you can name it, just to help out the restaurant. The business is not big, like I think it's around 100 seats in the restaurants, but busy enough that to have a lot of people helping in the restaurant. Because since we opened the restaurant, especially in Canada, we don't really have dinner at home. We had dinner actually in the restaurant instead. Yeah. And then the hours like for our dinner is actually very different because people come to the restaurant during dinner time, right? So we actually eat our dinner after the peak hours. So we usually have our dinner like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I think foods make people happy, like people eating food. So any barrier, I think when there's a food that actually involved in it, I think makes everyone so easy like to share everything together. I think like it's just a moment, like I think the food can actually break the barrier between people, like can actually connect people together, while enjoying it and having that moment. I think that's what I believe.
Nourishment for me means my stomach's happy, having a meal with good food and good people and good conversation. That's something that makes me feel nourished. To nourish others for me means to fill people with joy and love, whether it's through acts of community or giving or baking someone something. Growing up, I remember when my family, my Italian side, we would make gnocchi or fresh pizza and pasta with the pasta maker. Also pizzelle. Those are typical traditions around the holidays that we would do, specifically Christmas. It made me feel happy and connected. I guess learning how simple it is to make something and how much joy it can fill you with left a great impression on me, and it's definitely a tradition that I would want to carry through with my future children. I think food connects us all because whether it's tasteful or tasteless, it always sparks conversation. People can communicate what the flavors make them feel, whether it's nostalgia, brings back a past memory, and I think it can allow for traditions. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you have a really good meal with a friend or a family. Personally, I typically encounter those moments with friends and family and always go back around that specific time. And I think that it allows people to bond in many different ways. Yeah, I think it's a conversation piece just as much as it tastes good and looks good.
I have lots of nostalgic moments around nourishment through all points of life with different family and friends. Food is really the epicenter of connection and spending time together. One frequent memory about growing up was around my family. We had a pretty busy schedule with 3 kids and sports and after school activities and things like that. But we always made sure on Sunday night that was our kind of family time dinner. And without a doubt, we would always sit down 5 o'clock Sunday night. The Neil Diamond would turn on. That was always our go-to playlist. And it wasn't even about what we were eating, but it was about that preparation, getting together, making a wonderful meal, setting the table, lighting the candles, and just spending time together around the table. Other memories, even kind of dating back to when I was really young, my dad's mother, so my grandma, she had a quaint little house kind of out in the country, and we would always go for little sleepovers at her house when we were younger, individually, to kind of have our one-on-one time with grandma. And she had a very kind of simple, kind of basic approach to cooking. And it was always such a pleasure to be in the kitchen with her little apron and kind of just side by side, her standing and me in the chair, standing on the chair, making cookies, or her infamous salad dressing of pickle juice and mayonnaise, and enjoying the bounty of our efforts. Nourishment to me means replenishing something that feels like a vital component of well-being. It feels like it's the thing that's required when something is depleted, I guess, in a vague sense. But it's the kind of feeling of wellness and feeling of comfort. I think that's what nourishment means to me. Mm-hmm. Sure, nourishment, I mean, it has such a different meaning now. I mean, other than the basic necessity of, feeding a child or your family, it's really about kind of the quality of food as well, really a consciousness to ingredients and what you're consuming, restoring that kind of well-being and healthiness. So I think nourishment has a great connection for me right now with health to ensure that, we're getting the needs. It's almost bringing me back to a sense of nourishment in the times when, we'd have company coming over, and it was really about like socializing, connecting, getting together with friends and family, and kind of the mad rush before that company comes over of, your mom saying, you got to clean the house, you got to do this, pick up your stuff, put this away, and just kind of this quick hustle to get things ready to enjoy and nourish your soul and those connections. My mom is a great cook as well. She loves cooking, and that was her jam. Like, I feel like constantly, like, she was either cutting the grass because we had lots of grass to cut on our property, or in the kitchen. And, she didn't have like super skilled techniques or things like that, but just her process, her kind of organization, and her direction to get things done, and also her patience in teaching. I think she felt that it was really important for us to know how to cook. Something special that felt nourishing growing up would be around the holidays, around Christmas, making cookies for Christmas. That was always my mom's kind of favorite thing. Still is her favorite thing, and it's actually so great to see kind of that being passed down even to my son now, who this year they came to our house and My mom and my son had kind of a grandma and grandson day baking cookies together. Her one specific recipe has always been her caramel corn. So it's always been kind of fun doing that process because it's such a quick process that you kind of have to be right on time with. And, you know, every year we kind of laugh because there's always a batch or two that is wrong or goes bad because we're together, and it's kind of, you know, the distractions of being together and socializing in the kitchen, catching up around the idea of cooking, that kind of distracts you from your process. So there's always kind of a good couple batches that are inedible that just make us laugh. I think food acts as a connector, especially with friends and family for, you know, dinners on the weekends or weeknights. And there's so much planning that's involved that really requires you to dig into the other person's, your guests', you know, preferences and needs or interests. So I think there's always so much excitement around that diversity of kind of socialization and getting together and cooking for someone. And it really, for me, expands my kind of go-tos and interests in cuisine and different recipes and whatnot. And I think that really helps connect us together. Food is so much about trial and error. And I guess going back to kind of the caramel corn challenges, I think the most memorable things for me are more so about experimentation and kind of the humility and memories created around things gone wrong. And I think those are almost the more memorable dinners or experiences that kind of create that nourishing kind of feeling and kind of memory and nostalgia. So I guess just to not be fearful of cooking and food and that sort of thing. And it's really about that experimentation and trial and error to get down to great memories and experiences.
Nourishment to me means creating a sense of well-being, and that's only achieved when it's shared with people that you care about and people that care for you. And so nourishment is about fueling your body and fueling your soul, and creating a sense of nourishment of the soul is often when you feel cared for or when you're able to care for others. And one way that I believe I can care for others is through food. We have to take care of our bodies, and we have to take care of our emotional connections with people. And so when we're cooking together and consuming together, we're doing both of those things at the same time. I think every early memory, especially with family, is around food. Food is really just the center point of why people come together. It's the excuse to come together. The underlying element of connecting as a family is really to be together, and the food acts as that binder, that activity that we're doing to bring us together, to engage in creating the food and then to engage in consuming the food. And even some of my early memories is not even around the creation or the consumption, but often as the cleaning up as well. You know, as a young child, we would play server, where we would collect the plates and get a little tip from my grandparents. And that sense of honoring them by taking care of them and cleaning up after them was as much about them fueling us with the food, but then us as children being able to give back and clean up after them. So those are some early memories of us as children. But culturally as well, with my mother's side of the family, it was food that was somewhat unfamiliar to me as a Canadian growing up here in Ontario, because she was from Eastern Europe and Latvia. So these few family gatherings that we had where we were exposed to more traditional Latvian food was always really exciting for me, because it was unknown, and it was delicious and it was unique, and it exposed me to a culture that I didn't get access to on the day-to-day, but I knew that it was very important to me and my family. So food in that regard was a way to not only connect with my immediate family members, but also to learn about the culture, because often through cooking food and interacting with and eating that food, it brought up stories from my family of that place that I had never been, those people that I had never met. And so it was a catalyst for discussion around culture and tradition and history and family. So sometimes food culture is around unique celebrations, moments of the year or seasonal celebrations where it becomes this big pomp and circumstance. But for me and my family, food was also something that was integrated into the day-to-day. We were very much the type of family where my mom and dad had a busy day at work, but they would come home at the end of the day and we would still cook a family meal and sit down around the table and eat together every night. And at the time, it didn't feel special or unique. It was just the everyday. And so as I became a teenager, I think I really realized the burden of my family and how hard my mom and dad worked and how difficult it is sometimes to get home and get food on the table for a family that's, nutritious and of a timely manner. So I think really as a 10, 12, 14-year-old is when I started to help out more in the kitchen and started to really find the value in cooking with my mother and cooking with my father, and really not just the food, but the idea of sitting around a table and connecting as a family to share how our day has been, as mundane as that may seem on the day-to-day, how important that was to the family unit. And so for me, now that I'm a mother, I do feel that while the food itself is important in terms of nutrition and being able to offer a variety of foods so that my toddler becomes someone who appreciates good food, it's actually more about the opportunity to sit down together and have that routine of let's cook together, let's appreciate the food that we're eating, let's clean up together, so that it's not just about the food itself, but about that ritual of connecting together that I'm trying to instill in her.